come forward. There's plenty of space and down the front. But it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and we've enjoyed our few days together so far. So, I mean, this session, we kind of want to make it really, really informal and quite interactive. And so we actually wanted to, I guess, create opportunity just in a few minutes to open the floor up for questions. And I know it's called a masterclass, but we definitely feel like we're not really the masters of anything. We're just kind of a few people just having a go, and we've definitely learned some things along our journey in worship, in church, in building teams. So my name is Jay. So I'm our worship pastor, worship director, whatever titles you're kind of used to, for our Hillsong UK. So for those who don't know, Hillsong Church started in Sydney, Australia, about 35 years ago. And now we have, I think, close to 15 campuses across the world. So we've got three in the US. We have a bunch in Europe. We've got South America. We've just launched into Indonesia and Bali. So it's kind of an ever-expanding thing. And so I've been part of Hillsong Church in London for 17 years. So when I joined church, there was maybe just a bit more people than currently in this room right now. And 17 years later, we have six campuses across the UK. I think we have about 15,000 people that attend regularly on Sundays, and we have, obviously that means we need a lot of people, a lot of teams, a lot of people serving who actually contribute and make church happen. And pretty much everything that we do is done through volunteers. There's a few people on staff, and our job is to lead teams of volunteers and empower them and pastor them. And so that's like a little bit of the insight, I guess, into Hillsong Church. We're not a band. We're not a touring band. We're actually planted in a church, and that's Hillsong Church. And I guess everything that most people in churches, if they hear about Hillsong, a lot of it is through the music, and it's just, I guess, it's been the vehicle that God has used within our church, that He's blessed. It's been the thing that has actually gone out into all continents of the world, from major cities to little towns in Africa, and so being part of that is actually just it's actually a really humbling thing, and even being here, it's really amazing actually to be part of this, and it's our first time in Israel, all our team. So we've got 11 people here with us right now who have come from London, all part of our church. So I'll let everyone kind of introduce themselves and kind of what they do within the team. So Josh, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Josh. As you probably saw us earlier, I'm one of the singers, and back in London I look after all the youth worship.
My name is Fadila, and I am a worship leader, singer, and I oversee one of our campuses in London.
Hi, my name is Mark. I play drums, and I oversee one of our campuses, worship teams in Newcastle, north of England.
Because everyone knows where that is.
Thanks, Jay.
You guys jump up. You kind of introduce yourselves. Come up.
Hey everyone, I'm Luke. As you know, I play keyboards. I am a volunteer, and I help lead the keyboards in London. That's what I do.
Hi, I'm Joe, and I look after the worship for our new midweek campus, and also intern with Jay, so a bunch of other things.
Hi, I'm Betty. I help Josh with youth worship, and I also look after the vocals in worship team.
Hey, I'm Fitz. I'm one of our sound engineers, mixing monitors, working in production.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm on staff in the UK, so I coordinate the worship tours that we do overseas in Israel and stuff. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ben. I look after production for one of our campuses in London, and I've been looking after sound here and production. It's been cool.
Hi, I'm Dan. I play bass. I musically direct and lead our orchestra.
Great. Yeah, give them a hand. So I guess it would be good to actually know who's in the room here. And so like I said, we want to make this really interactive. So if there's questions that maybe you kind of just wanted to ask, and we'd actually kind of love to help. And so put your hand up if you are a musician. Great, that's awesome. What about singers, vocalists? Great. Any worship leaders? Awesome. Any songwriters? Awesome. That's so good. I feel like we've kind of got the right group of people in the room. It's always good to know when you're talking to the right group of people. So I don't know. We just want to kind of open up the floor, and we're really passionate about worship and about worship teams, about growing teams, about growing growing the house of God. And so that's kind of that's our first love. That's our passion. What we do. And so we would, if there's questions, pop your hand up and ask. And otherwise, Mark here will kind of maybe get the ball rolling a bit. But is there any questions to kind of start? Yes. Yeah, great. Did everybody hear that? Do you want to just maybe give him the mic?
Okay.
Might be good.
It would be great to hear a bit about your songwriting process, particularly the idea of lyric writing and pushing creative boundaries while staying true to kind of sound theology.
Yeah, so we actually do have a really strict process when it comes to songwriting, and all of our songs, they get signed off by. There's a couple in our church in Sydney called Robert and Amanda Ferguson, just an incredible couple, and so lyrically they approve the songs the songs that we sing, and they so whenever there's a new song that's written, all the lyrics will go to them, and they'll feed back. Because the last thing that we actually want to be doing is singing heresy, because in the effort to be poetic, sometimes in your head it's one way that you've got this whole thought process about this one line, but to someone else it comes across completely differently, and the meaning is lost. So the process is there to actually help people, and at the end of the day, we want to sing biblical truth, because it's not our truth that sets people free. It's actually the word of God. It's the knowledge of Christ, and that Christ sets us free, and that's kind of everything that we want to be singing about. And but then at the same time, it's how do we say things in a new way? It still has to be the same thing, but how do we say it in a new way? And I think that's always the struggle when it comes to songwriting, especially lyrics. There's only so much you can say, but we actually want to maybe there's a fresh angle that we can come from when it comes to how we say it. And I know the guys can maybe jump in, and Josh is one of our songwriters as well.
I think one good thing about Robert and Amanda is they don't listen to the songs, they just read the lyrics, which is probably a good thing if you're going to show someone a song, for theology-wise, don't show them the song, just show them the words, because otherwise you can get lost in the melodies. I think just a super practical thing for coming up with new ways of saying stuff. I've got open notes on my phone of just whenever you see something or it makes you think of something, or when you get a God moment, or you're in a worship service or preach and something, every time something hits you and you're like, oh, that's really cool, instead of it just being oh, that's really cool, and it's a fleeting moment, I'll actually note them down. And then when we're writing, obviously you've got the scriptures that you come in and stuff, but I've also got these lines and lines and lines and lines of God-inspired moments that you can just see, would this work in this space? Or, and that, I don't always do this, but I've sorted some of them by theme and stuff. Yeah, only when you've got time.
Does that, hopefully that helps? Yeah, great.
When it comes to worship, it's not like probably being an usher. Leading worship comes with the limelight, comes with faith, exposure. So how do you tame the flesh that comes to influence a lot of church politics, come in the way of you worshiping God in spirit and in truth, instead of you being there because you have a great voice and you're talented?
It's a great question. I mean, you have to, the Bible talks about taking up your cross daily. And, whenever I come into a worship environment, when it comes to leading, I actually just give it to God. And you just remind yourself, actually, this is not about me. People haven't come to see me. They've actually come expectant to meet God. And actually what that does, it removes the pressure. Because then, I'll bring the best that I can bring. I'll bring what I can in the natural, but I know that God is going to breathe his supernatural, and that it's actually the supernatural power of God that is actually going to change lives. It's not the music, even though we do want to bring our best when it comes to the music and what we present, but it's actually the power of God that changes people's lives. And you just have to remind yourself, it's not about you. It's not about me. And God wants to use us, but he will work and he will move despite us.
I actually read this morning, and this really encouraged me. One of our songs on Let There Be Light is called Crowns, and it talks about how, there's all these things that you can be, like, oh, you're a great singer, you're a great worship leader, you're a great leader in church or whatever. But it speaks here about, Paul speaks in Philippians 3:4, and it says, though I myself have reason for confidence in the flesh also, if anyone else thinks he has reason for confidence in the flesh, I have more. Circumcised and it goes on and on, but whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. And I just thought to myself, like, yeah, that's so true. Like, any accolade that I have means nothing to me if I don't give it to God, and I don't give it as an offering to God. So yeah.
I think as well, like for most of us, like it's worth remembering that you're standing on the shoulders of people who have built the thing and the platform that you're leading on. So when, like, for our church, for example, it's so easy for us to not think about ourselves because we know that we're not here because of something that we've done or something that we've built, but it's the sacrifice of, countless people over the years, and we're actually stepping into what they've sacrificed for. So, things.
Great. Next.
What are some of your biggest challenges, and then how do you sustain your relationship with the Lord, like devotion life and stuff like that?
So what are some of our biggest challenges, and how do we... What was the sustain
your relationship with God?
Okay. Well, I think everything flows out of intimacy with Jesus, and that's obviously biblical. And you'll find it to be a game changer in your own lives in the way that you're wired. So you may not be wired for worship. You may be wired to do, administrative church or, the organizational aspect. Generally speaking, if, and I'm super strict on my own time with God because I find myself starting to fall, getting weary, getting tired. And you've heard the verse maybe 100 times, it's not my strength, but Christ's strength in me. But it's amazing how often we forget that. And so I can look back at, maybe the last few years of my life, and I've seen actually the moments of, a flow when there's a real ease to what I do. It's because I'm intimate with Jesus. I can hear his voice. I'm reading his word. I'm getting... Sometimes in my office before church, when I feel like I've got nothing left, I'll physically get on my face before God just to tell him, God, this is the lowest I can possibly be so you can be as high as you possibly can be. And it's actually from those moments, you can practice, you can warm up your voice, you can read the words so you can get lyrics for songs that you're writing, but actually that's you working in your own strength. If you are hanging out with the Ancient of Days, with Jesus, he'll actually use you as a vessel to reach the people that he wants to reach.
Great. You had a question down here, right?
How do you say thank you? Do you know, like sometimes, like if I'm leading worship and then people say, oh, worship was amazing, but I don't want them to like look at me, I want them to look at God. So then you get in a place where you can say, that's not me, it's God, but then you kind of, it can get like a false humility kind of thing. Yeah. So then it's like, how do you like say thank you gracefully, but you know, you can get in a place what's not good if you allow it to.
You know, I think, for myself, I just say thank you. It's actually okay just to say thank you when someone gives you a compliment. And ultimately, what you do with that is between you and God. It's not between you and the person, it's between you and God. And just say thanks and then move on. I think, like, it's actually not complicated. It's really simple. And it's okay when people do say thank you, but then just kind of move on. Yeah, you don't need to explain yourself every single time someone says thank you to you. Yeah.
Thank you for the great worship.
Thank you.
That was a test. No, just on a practical level, you have campuses. I imagine there's a number of singers and musicians. How do you organize teams? Are you always playing with the same people? It changes every week, or it's for a time, or how does that all work out?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we've got 6 campuses in the UK, and obviously that requires a lot of people. So across the 6 campuses, we have, I think, 15 services on a weekend, and so there's a lot of rotation, a lot of people that are included in that, and we have people that are based in certain campuses, but then there's some people which kind of rotate around a little bit. But I think for us, team is inclusive. We're all about investing into people, bringing people into serving God, and trying to bring out the potential in people, and finding the gold that people have that sometimes they don't even think they have as well. And so for us, we're all about. We can't do what we do without people. And so we're all about training, investing into people, loving people, and believing in people, and just, believing that they have a great future ahead of them, that God has a great future for them, and which He does. And so it's being really open and inclusive, and that's how we're actually able to do what we do. And I'm amazed at the faithfulness of people. And the way that people go above and beyond, and these are volunteers. They're not paid people, but they're actually they catch the heart and the vision of the house of God, of what God has for them and what God has for His people as well. And we couldn't do it without people, so we're actually all about that. Yeah.
Just to add, I know that in the campus that I'm in with my husband Ben, we just make sure that the platform isn't the goal, that's not where people are trying to. That's not what serving is. Serving is actually coming to church. Like, you can be just helping out, just being around, just shadowing someone, and that is serving. So I think with especially with our teams are growing so fast, the mentality is always, mate, you're not here to like serve on the stage and to lead worship or to be the MD or whatever. Like, you're here to be part of a community, to be part of family, and just kind of instilling that always.
But does the core of the team tend to stay the same, and you bring people in and out, or you just mix everything on a weekly or monthly basis?
We have like a core team for sure. So, just say it again.
I'm saying, is there a core part of the team? Like, is there a core that stays the same on a weekly basis on a specific campus, and then maybe you slot people in and out over time?
Yeah.
That's
So there's definitely people who are based. They would call it their campus. That's kind of, if they weren't serving, that's where they would attend church. So we kind of take all that into consideration and kind of build people into certain campuses, but still maintaining some flexibility, because there might be a weekend where actually this campus needs some help and support. So can you actually go out there and serve this weekend and support? Yeah. Yes. Yes, I am. Yeah.
I was actually serving in the Hillsong London worship team like 12 years ago when I first
Amazing.
got saved. So it's great to see you guys here. I've been in Tel Aviv now for a couple of years. I'm a worship leader in a local congregation, small, between 20 and 40 people on a Shabbat. And just if you had any tips on building atmosphere in a smaller environment, practically in a worship service, to engage the congregation, perhaps people, especially not so used to opening their heart and opening up to God.
Yeah. I think you gotta be willing to take people on a journey, and don't be afraid of the journey as well. It's, you gotta, even here, it was, a lot of it was about just building trust with people, about building rapport and taking people on a journey. Because then we'll go into other environments where maybe there's already that trust when it comes to leading worship. So you can start at a different level, and it's just being able to gauge, I think, your environment and actually where you're at with people and kind of where you want to be. And you don't need to do everything in one service. And just be committed to the journey. Be committed to taking people on a journey in worship, and not just for that one service, but for the years to come. Yeah.
I'd like to just bring it back for a minute to the songwriting aspect, and I want to ask you a question, but I'm going to make a wild stab at a guess at an answer, and you can correct me. When you came out with There Was No Other Name, No Other Name album, I was so heavily impacted by it. I thought I was very, it really ministered deeply, deeply to me. And as I was driving along listening to it, I was imagining a room in Sydney or in London where a bunch of songwriters were sitting in a circle and saying to one another, what's God's heart for the next phase? What is it? Let's pray about what the Lord wants to bring to this generation around the world. Was there some kind of a meeting like that, or did it just happen more organically? Because, we're at a place in Israel where we're seeking God about the next phase in songwriting.
I mean, personally, I can't speak for Joel Houston, who wrote that song, as he's not here. But when it comes to every song and every project, every album, there's always a seeking of God, and actually what He's wanting to say through the songs, through the project for the season that we're in as a church, because that's where everything is birthed out of. That's where the songs are birthed out of, is where we're at as a church and what God is doing in our congregations, in our campuses. So there's always that seeking of the voice of God. What is God saying to us right now? And then, we're actually amazed at how that translates across other churches and how people kind of grab hold of that as well. And some people it applies to, some it doesn't. But the songs, I know we never know kind of what's going to happen with the songs. God just takes them and does what He does with them, and we have to give them to God and just believe that He will do what He will do with them.
Just a really quick, short question. I'm based in London as well. I'm part of HTB actually, and I love what you guys do, and I sing as well. So I just wanted to ask you guys, how do you guys envision yourself working with Israel in the future? I mean, I've kind of always had a heart for Israel, and to a certain extent, but I've never really been here. So I got here, did the tour, you might have done as well, I think, and just really experienced what it really means. And just for me, I want to get involved more in Israel, helping Israel from London and connecting that way. And how do you guys feel in terms of worship? Because I think you have so much rich experience and obviously so much God's given you guys. Is there any way you see yourself imparting that more in Israel in the future, moving forward, or what do you guys think?
I mean, I feel like the best person to speak about this is Katrina, who is just sitting over here. Katrina, do you want to come up? So say hi to Katrina, everybody.
Unplanned, thank you. Great question. My name's Katrina, and I've been based in Hillsong in Sydney for the last 18 years. And as of this year, I'll be basing myself here because we're planting Hillsong in Tel Aviv. And so we'll be very involved, I guess, in worshipping in the land. But we'll be doing a whole lot more than running worship events. You know, we'll be actually building the church from the ground up, and we'll be serving the community, and we'll be rolling our sleeves up. And we've started small groups and connect groups already. And even they're scratching and chomping at the bit for us to start worship services because, you know, there's a small, very small group already who are really keen. But, yeah, it's very much in our senior pastors' hearts. Brian and Bobby, they've been here a few times now, and it got in their spirit, and they fell in love with the people even more than the place. And I guess the mandate for championing the cause of the local church, as well as the grace for worship that's on our house. I'm believing we're going to hopefully bring that and bring a blessing to the land and partner alongside the incredible ministries that are already here. So, yeah, watch this space.
Great. We've got time for just one more question, then we have to finish. Yeah, go.
Lucky me. I also was part of Hillsong London about 12 years ago, also on the worship team. So I know a little bit about how you guys, maybe back then anyway, did worship rehearsals and stuff. But one of the greatest deposits that I felt that time made in my life was just constantly striving for excellence. And my question is, how do you find the balance between maintaining that excellence while still investing in the next generation?
Yeah. So Joe here, I've known Joe pushing 10 years now. And Joe, I was Joe's youth pastor. So we were part of the same campus. And so I knew him, you know, as a kid and all that kind of stuff. And to see the journey that he's been on has been remarkable for me personally. Because we've got a real, as a church, a real almost legacy mentality. And that kind of like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym, come home and say, where are my muscles? You know, that's proven over time. You've got to be consistent. You've got to believe in people. And I think actually, you know, the Bible says that faith pleases God. And it takes real faith to say to someone like Joe, who you know, was a kid, he was kind of learning guitar, and our pastor was just like, Joe, why don't you lead worship? And as a young youth pastor, I was like, well, why? He's never done it before. Why would you do that? You know, don't you have to be really good at it? And of course, the answer is that maybe there's something in there that he doesn't know about just yet. And that's definitely how we tend to run things, is building to people with a long-term mentality and have faith that the gold is going to come out at some point. You know what? You may never see it, but I believe that we're part of a church that has sent people out, you know, and they're doing great things for God without us even realizing it. And so it takes real faith, and it takes hard work. And Joe was a nightmare when he. Nah, I'm joking. He was actually awesome. But there are some of the young people on team that we'll take a risk. We'll say, hey, why don't you lead worship at youth? And then obviously there's, you know, the joys of Instagram. We'll see an Instagram post that they've put up the night afterwards, and we're like, that's not what a worship leader does. You know, they might be out with their friends, and, you know, there's having those conversations and encouraging them and correcting them and all that kind of stuff. But that takes time and faith. And I think that's always the winner. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. I think we actually have to finish now. But thanks so much for coming in and bringing the questions. Hopefully there's been something that's maybe helped. And I think we actually have to clear this room quite quickly, because there's something else happening here very soon. But thank you so much, guys.